video and send us a link so you can see what we've done?
I thought about it.
You should already have it.
Any questions before we get started? Good morning. It's good to see you all here. My name is Josh Anderson. I'm out of Olathe Northwest High School, and like you, I'm a practitioner and a debate coach, a recovering English teacher. And I've heard about flipped classrooms for about 3 or 4 years, and many of you may have heard about it for longer than that. Some of you may have come from generations where we've already tried something like flipped classrooms, and it's recursive and it's back again. And so I wanted to use this opportunity to share my experience with flipped learning and share the positive experiences I've had and some of the struggles that I've had as well. But the first thing I'd like to do is sort of assess where we are. So we're going to do an activity that I use in my classroom called Fist in the Air. Would you all raise your fist in the air? And I will wait until everybody's fist is in the air. This is not optional.
Fight the power.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being absolutely no and 5 being absolutely yes, how many of you would say that you know what a flipped classroom means? Good. I'm seeing a lot more 1s and 2s than I thought I would, so that means we'll spend a little bit more time on that. How about I have attempted to try a flipped classroom? Obviously, if you're a 1 before, you're still a 1 again. Excellent. Those of you who have 4s and 5s, I expect you to jump in with your own ideas, especially ones that are better than mine. Number 3, I have a clear vision for how to flip a class like a debate class. Good. Again, 4s and 5s, I want you to jump in. And I think the idea of flipping the classroom is good for kids. And if you don't know, you can opt out. All right. Audience analysis is good. I know where to spend more time, less time. What does it mean to flip a classroom? Lots of definitions out there. Here's how I would define it. Flipping simply means introducing new content during the homework stage and reinforcing that new content during the instructional phase during class. So really, you're just flipping. We are used to a traditional classroom where the bell rings and we go about introducing new content and then proceeding to reinforce it. That has been the educational cycle that all of us have grown comfortable with, and certainly the one that I used for the last 17 years. Now in the 18th year, I'm flipping my classroom, which means I am now presenting information as homework and reinforcing it during class. There is some irony with my journey with Flipped. I was the chair of our Flipped blended cadre at Olathe Northwest last year. And the whole time telling everyone who cared to listen that you can't flip debate. Well, you can't flip. This is nice. If I were still an English teacher, boy, I would flip my classroom. If I were a math teacher, it works wonderful. Science, fantastic. But I teach debate. You can't flip debate. And I really stuck with that position all year, despite being the chair of the cadre in the building on flipped and blended learning. Then this summer, I sort of rethought things, and it started from last year, and I kind of went on this little journey, and I figured out how to do it, and I'm having good results. So, I initially rejected the concept of flipping debate because I said things like, debate concepts are too challenging to introduce as homework. When you're talking about terms and things like that, how could that possibly be something you introduce as homework? It needs to be a live discussion. I can't tell whether my students are understanding the concepts if they're sitting at home doing it as homework. We need to bond as a class. We need to go through this journey together. I need to hear questions and answers. I want to be there for the aha moment. Lots of good reasons why I said you can't flip debate. You can flip English, you can't flip debate. The problem with the way that I used to do things, and it may apply to you, it may not apply to you. I generally think I'm one of the last people on any fun train. So I typically question the stuff that I used to do. I think lectures are ineffective for kids. And I realize that may hit at the heart of what we do, because for the last 17 years, that's what I've done. First 4 weeks of novice debate, I would lecture, and I'd lecture constantly. Many of you still use that method. Had I not changed to this, I would be using that method. I think post-lecture checks for understanding are also ineffective. We lecture for 30 minutes, we ask if there's questions, we ask a few questions, a random selection of kids answer the questions, and we satisfy ourselves that yes, they have learned it. I think that's ineffective. That's what I used to do until this year, so I'm guilty. I think class activities get marginalized. I think we say, well, I'm going to teach topicality for 25 minutes, and then we'll do 25-minute class activity. And as it turns out, every time, I have 10 minutes left for activity, and we try and square it as best we can. So those class activities get marginalized. Part of that is my ego getting in the way. I don't mind lecturing for 50 minutes if the kids will let me. But the reality is, usually a 15-minute lecture turns into a 30-minute lecture because we have distractions, we have questions, we have me going on tangents and things like that. I also think that the pace of the first month of novice debate rarely allows us to reinforce previous concepts. I hope that you're better at this than I was before this year. Teach topicality on Monday. On Tuesday, I might be moving on to disends. I hope that's not what you do, but I know I was guilty of it every single year. We have one day to learn this, and tomorrow we're going to learn something new. And it's because that first weekend is a looming deadline. I mean, we just have to pack it all in. And the opportunities that I gave my kids prior to this year to recursively teach, let's go back and review that concept, never seemed to happen. If you didn't get it the first time, hopefully you get it your first round, which is probably not good for kids. This is what I now have. Each night my students learn new content via homework. I say to them, your homework is to learn about something called topicality. They go home, they learn about topicality. I see you're taking notes, that's wonderful, I can send this to you if that's, don't worry about it. Part of each homework assignment is a check for understanding that I can measure. Maybe it's an online quiz or it's an activity that they do online. My check for understanding can be individualized. 80% of my kids got it, 40% of my kids got it. This kid didn't take the quiz. Far greater than the checks for understanding I would do post-lecture in the classroom. I can open each class period with an additional check for understanding, like a Kahoot quiz, which we're going to do later. How many of you have heard of Kahoot? Oh, good. Good. Kahoot. I can open each class period. So, welcome to class. Good morning. Last night your homework was to learn about topicality. Let's do a quick quiz. Let's do a quick activity. Maybe a 5-10 minute activity. Call it a bell ringer. Call it whatever you want. That's an additional check for understanding. Have they retained it in that 12-hour period? That leaves about 35 to 40 minutes for practice, reinforcement, and application. And that's the power of flipped learning. Is that 35 to 40 minutes of my class period is now spent on kids doing, and maybe 10 minutes is spent on me talking. That is a complete reversal of what I used to do in my classroom. And that's where the power comes in, for me. So we now spend 1/3 of the time learning and have multiplied the number of minutes that we spend doing by 3. I think we're working with generations of students that work better in groups, that work better collaboratively, that work better when there's a lot of noise and things going on in the room. Try it, fail, reflect, modify, adapt, try it again. Try it, fail, modify, adapt. Right? Much better. You and I grew up in generations where lectures sufficed. This generation doesn't seem to be getting lectures. So flipping is the difference between welcome to class. Today we're going to learn about topicality, and if we have time, we will do an activity. Your homework tonight will be to work by yourself to apply the new learning. That was my classroom for 17 years. This year, welcome to class, your homework last night was to learn about topicality. Let's spend our first few minutes reviewing the concepts, and we'll spend the rest of the hour applying them in teams and groups. So you are flipping how students learn. You can't see it too well, but you're welcome to lean in. These are estimated minutes per task. The yellow is the traditional, the orange is flipped. My students used to spend more time on homework, mostly because my homework assignments were an invention of, well, since you're by yourself, then maybe create a topicality shell and bring it to class tomorrow. And for a lot of kids who listened to the lecture and picked up 1/8 of what I was saying, the idea of doing a topicality shell, the products that I would get back the next day were not quality. Now they spend less time doing the homework because that's where they're introducing the material. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we introduce that material as homework. The lecture has gone way down, the lecture in class. I might open up the activity with, last night you watched topicality, let's talk about that. And I'm still surprised by the number of times that I go into lecture mode. You know, topicality is and I kind of go into lecture mode, and I can see the kids saying, like, we covered this last night. We already learned this. And that's been a real boon for me. The amount of activity time where my students spend learning and doing instead of listening has increased substantially. The administrivia remains the same, the passes, the fire drills, the other things that complicate the classroom. That doesn't change. And the check for understanding increases significantly because I have 2 opportunities to do that. The first is as part of the homework phase, and the second is when they come to class. This is a very real-life scenario, and it happened yesterday in my novice debate class. Yesterday, my students walked into class already knowing what topicality was, how to structure a topicality argument, how to answer a topicality on the affirmative, and the difference between effects and extra topical. They also took a tough topicality quiz in class, and they averaged 82%. We spent the hour making 2 topicality shells, reading both shells, and having a mock debate on T, 1 AC, all the way through the 2 AR. We did that in 50 minutes. And I had only mentioned the word topicality in class once before. And it was the previous day to say, tonight your opportunity, your homework is to learn about topicality. For me, it truly is that powerful. It is that much of a difference. So when you talk about creating content, there are lots of ways that you can go out there and find content. Because the big question is, where the hell am I going to get all the stuff that I'm going to give to kids as homework? Because when I'm in lecture mode, I have all the content up here. All you need to do as my student is listen. That makes life a little easier because the classroom preparation is minimized. I got the first hour covered because I can talk about topicality until I'm blue in the face. So where do you go out and find content that you can provide to your students as part of the homework? The first is web content, and that's things like NSDA, YouTube, debate websites, SchoolTube, TeacherTube, and an incredible video by Tim Sheaf, where he talks about stock issues. And God bless him, he's reading from notes the entire time. But it's on there, you can link to it, you can show it to your students, and it's a good 20-minute video on introduction to stock issues. So we know that there are good resources out there. We also know that there are bad resources out there. I'm a big critic of a lot of the video instruction for debate out there because the audio, first of all, you can't hear anything because it's microphones in the back. Like this camera right here, the chances of it truly picking up anything where anyone could replicate that at home are minimal at best, right? The audio is going to be bad. Kids ask questions you can't hear. The lecture meanders. It's tough to watch. It's tough to replicate. But there's some good stuff out there on YouTube and TeacherTube and things like that. So the content is more engaging, and it takes less time because all you have to do is link it and provide the URL to the student. The disadvantage is it's hit and miss, and there are big gaps. So you want to teach your kids about fiat, and then you discover there's nothing out there on fiat. The second would be your personal files. This would work better for a program where kids didn't necessarily have the internet at home. That would be things like, before you leave class today, pick out the small packet that's on the corner of the desk as you leave the room. That's your homework for tonight. So you're still providing the materials, maybe if you use a textbook, but you still have the opportunity to introduce materials as homework rather than as lecture. So that includes your files, handouts, gathered material. I mean, all of us have a hard drive full of nonsense that we've been throwing at our kids for umpteen years, right? So dig into that, and maybe you're providing printed copies, or maybe you have like Edmodo or something like that, where you're providing the content to the student outside the school day. It is less engaging. I would kind of pity the kids who have to read 4 pages of content. I'm not sure that's the best way for kids to learn, but maybe if you did a check for understanding activity that really required them to hone in, you could make it work. And then the third option, which is the option that I've chosen, which is both the hardest thing I've ever had to do and the easiest thing I've ever had to do, is to create the original media myself. If you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. That requires an extraordinary amount of time up front. It was an all-consuming thing for my summer. But now that I have it done, I don't have to do it again, at least for not for the foreseeable future. So you are creating your content, everything from Camtasia to Screencast-O-Matic to Screen Capture to the voiceovers, depending on how deep into it you want to go. So creating your original content can be powerful, and that's the one that I chose. So I want to show you some video samples. I think at first, if I were in your position, I'd say, well, I'm not doing that. I am not doing that. But I want to give a little caveat. One is I did it during the summertime. 2, you're probably looking at flipping, if you're gonna flip, you're gonna flip next year anyway. You're not gonna flip tomorrow, you're not gonna flip next week. So when I'm showing you the content that I've created, be aware that nobody's asking you to do it for next week. We're talking about next year for most of you.
But you could still try it out. You could try it out in
Absolutely.
small amounts. You
Absolutely.
wouldn't have to
Yeah.
go the whole thing, you could just do small lessons
Yeah.
in it too.
And I will tell you that I had zero experience with any kind of video instruction before I tried this. Camtasia it's free for 30 days. You get the full software when you do the download, and I was amazed at how easy it was to learn. Now I'm kind of nerdy, so this is that. I'm going to show you just a few, maybe a minute or so. And as you watch each of these, what I'd like you to do is really look at, does the video do a better job than we can do during the lecture phase? Would your students understand the concept better by watching the video than by watching the actual, by doing a lecture? And I have a feeling, can I click? There we go. Goes white, just like we want it to. Most of the negative arguments shouldn't be too surprising, so the affirmative should be prepared with lots of front lines. More importantly, if the negative team only made 2 or 3 arguments because they took too long and they weren't organized, a good affirmative team can use their front lines to neutralize the negative arguments and spend the rest of the speech telling the judge how wonderful the affirmative plan is, which is something the negative team does not want the judge to hear. So, the 2AC needs to restore all of the original affirmative arguments by defending against the negative responses Think how much made less with 1 time you and spend C, writing on the board? and defend against all the new And all of offensive the arguments content made just with 1 and falls C. That's where a you lot of needed work. to, when you needed to.
And even though the affirmative team should be experts in the area of homework, 8 minutes is not a lot of time to get through all the arguments. Now the 1N cross-examines the 2A while the 2N prepares his or her constructive. Next is where the debate really begins to happen, because next we have the negative block. The negative block is made up of the 8-minute second negative constructive and a 5-minute first negative rebuttal. There is a cross-examination after the 2NC where the second affirmative gets to cross-check the 2N. Now let's go on to the citation. You want to see another video in this series? Conversation in which you strategically call the audience. 2007, on page 747. Claims in your tagline, judges will not only disregard that evidence, which leaves you with no evidence to support your claims, but they may start to question your other pieces of evidence as well.
I'll stop
Don't
next
power
time.
tag, don't let other teams power tag. Now let's go on to the citation, which is the publication data that allows us to know who wrote the evidence and where the evidence was published. In this case, Robert Marzano and Deborah Picker.
Come on.
Wrote an article titled "The Case For and Against Homework" in a journal titled Educational Leadership, published by an organization called ASCD. It was published in March of 2007 on pages 74 to 79. We've also included the author's qualifications, which were available at the bottom of the article on the webpage. And we've included the URL so that we can see where it was published on the internet as well. The good news is that you don't always have to read the full citation. Instead, you might notice that the author's last name and the year in which it was published are in bold. Bold text.
Josh, what program was that?
Camtasia.
What Tasia?
Camtasia,
Okay.
C-A-M.
Third, remember that the whole purpose of the resolution is to evenly divide affirmative and negative ground. Ground is the imaginary boundary that is naturally created by each word in the resolution. Without the resolution, the affirmative team could support any idea, anywhere. Instead, we require affirmative teams to support only the ideas that involve the federal government substantially increasing its non-military exploration and/or development of the Earth's oceans. As you can see, each word in the resolution limits the ground available for the affirmative team.
So here's a visual
That
narrative.
means that the affirmative team
when
can only
creating in the
propose or
classroom would
support
take 5,
any
10
policy
minutes.
changes within that imaginary
have it all
ground
done
created
here,
by the words in the resolution.
They're getting the
The
same
whole purpose
concept
of limiting
in
ground
maybe
is to
30
make
seconds.
it fairer for the negative team to research and prepare for the debate. As we explore each word in the resolution, you'll see how each word narrows the ground for the affirmative team and reduces the number of
Okay. You want to see the outtakes?
Oh, yes.
My kids love those outtakes. They get angry
inherency,
when it doesn't have.
harms,
They get angry when it doesn't have.
solvency, topicality, and that's all for now. Remember, if the affirmative team needs to win every stock issue, or they haven't met their four
The
burdens
kids
of
like it when
proof.
it's not perfect.
Good luck, debaters.
I know.
There are 4 burdens. In other words, well, I am, first of all, this means that the affirmative case must be absolutely present as being able to provide only those who, think of the judge as only being able to preside, and really does exist. Maybe the problem does, that brings us to the part, this.
So that green screen is actually set up in my second bedroom, and I got it from Amazon for $150, and that's an investment. You know, the camera's an investment too. But you know, this summer, the cool thing is I'm writing scripts. The scripts take a while, but I'm uploading the scripts to an iPad, which is just above the camera, and I can control the prompter with my phone, which is why every time I screw up, you see me leaning down to get my phone. I can speed it up off camera and slow it down off camera. So I do a lot of screwing up, but that's fine, because I like the finished product. Now, do not think, under any circumstance, that this is what a teacher would have to do in order to flip his or her classroom. I just know me, I have an over-the-top personality, it's what I do. I'm also single, which means that I have my summers totally free to do with, like, nobody else controls my schedule.
That sounds cool.
That's not okay, if you want a copy of the videos, if you want to go to this URL, you could download some of the videos. There's no www, it's just http://tiny.cc/flipvideos.
Can you post that on like
Yeah.
the debate?
In the interest of full disclosure, I'm very much thinking about packaging like all 50 videos and then selling them. So, but I'm not selling them now. That's not part of the conversation, but that's kind of where my,
To the highest.
I have some student loans I gotta pay off. And I gotta figure out how to do it. And this is my idea, so. No, not karaoke. I don't, what, okay. All right. So here are my instructional discoveries. I created the videos using a fun resolution. That was a smart idea on my part. Jeff Plinsky gave me that idea. I used the resolution, resolve the principal of your high school should substantially increase or decrease the amount of homework assigned by your teachers. That means I can use the videos again and again and again and again. I only create one topic video each year. The rest of them are on the fun resolution. And since the novices have no exposure to the topic anyway, for them to live in a world of homework debate for the first 2 or 3 weeks of class, they really work well with that. They get that. They understand that. And it also means that, again, I don't have to change the videos year after year. Instead of preparing lectures, I now prepare activities. All that time that I spent this summer preparing those videos has saved me an extraordinary amount of time in planning my class. And frankly, I'd rather give up my summer free time than give up my year free. I have never had a smoother start to the school year I have found I dare not mention this outside this room. I have found myself very comfortable when it comes to time management. And I knew for 17 years that panic, that, oh my God, I have 30 things I gotta do for my kids tomorrow, I gotta do this, and I just always felt behind. This year changed all of that. And my levels of panic have reduced significantly. Because now I say, well, for tomorrow, we're gonna do this fun activity. And it turns out that the lecture really cut into how I manage the activities. I spend most of my time watching kids learn instead of watching kids pay attention. You know, when we do lectures, there are a number of things that really cut into our ability to communicate with kids. And at that point, lecturing to students means, the same way that I'm lecturing to you now, means that you're all being compliant, you're all listening, none of you are going to get on my radar, but we also know that any number of things prevents kids from actually understanding the information that we're trying to transmit. And lectures have become, for my students, the last resort. I do keep trying to repeat the lecture. It's the number of times the kids have said, this is in the video, right? Okay, yeah, it's in the video. And so they'll shut me down and say, we already saw this. Because I just kind of go into my mode. And I started with scripts, and the advantage is I can provide those scripts to students. I now have on my Google Drive the 50 scripts, inherency. There are 4 parts, all of it's written out so that that becomes something that I can move around as I need to. Student feedback, and this is legitimate. The students, they really like the videos. They love the videos. They can rewind it as often as they want. The best part is, and I think I get this later on, but why is it, here's a little side conversation, I'm going to challenge your thinking. Why do we use lecture when we have all 30 kids sitting in front of us and we demand that they be quiet? They work in isolation. We demand that they be compliant while I talk for 30 minutes. What a waste of having the whole group together. And then we ask them to go home and by themselves apply debate. That's one of the most asinine things that I think I've done in the last 17 years. Here I've got 30 kids who could be engaged in doing things, and I need them to be quiet, pay attention, stay focused, when that's something they can do much better at home in their bedroom with a laptop. They're much more capable of watching a video that only lasts for 12 minutes, staying focused, rewinding the parts that are necessary, rewatching the parts that are necessary. That's when they're quiet. That's when I have their attention. And in class, let's be loud, let's move around, let's be doing things. They can also watch the videos weeks later. I'm still not pretending like my kids understand topicality, and they won't until after their first tournament. And then they'll lose around on it, they'll get angry, and that's when they pull up the topicality video that they still have access to. They can't pull me up 3 weeks from now, but they can pull that topicality video up. Parents can watch it as well, so it's good for judging. I don't think my parents are all watching the videos. But if I put together some sort of, a clip package that sort of taught my judging pool, so I'm planning on doing that for judges. The knowledge retention has skyrocketed. I could almost reliably ask a question a week after teaching something, and a third of my class would know the answer. And now it's much, much higher. They remember a lot more the next day than I thought they would. Traditional homework assignment, they didn't really get it in the first place, so they didn't really remember it the next day. Now they remember it the next day. Those animations really, really make a difference. They're powerful. And then absent students don't miss critical lectures. All right, so let's, I think we've gone over that. Delivering content. How many of you use Edmodo or Moodle, or is there something else out there that I'm not aware of?
My Big Campus.
My what?
My Big Campus.
My Big Campus?
Sucks.
Whoa! Yes, let's all be surprised if Pam has an opinion.
It sucks. We got rid of it.
All right. Some people love My Big Campus. Phrase I never thought I'd say. I cannot lie. And other people don't like it. I use Edmodo. It's free. The kids can access it from home. It's intuitive because it looks enough like Facebook that they kind of get it. There are some drawbacks to Edmodo, but it's good enough for what I need to do. I think Moodle would be more powerful, but I think Moodle is much more complex. Same with Blackboard, which, does that even exist anymore? Does anyone use Blackboard? Colleges? Okay.
Emporia State's moved away from it.
What are you using now?
Canvas,
Canvas?
just as of July 1st.
Pam, any opinions? She's getting up, she's gonna attack you. Run, Kenneth, run!
You can do Google Communities too.
What's that?
Google Communities, that's what
Google
we're starting
Community?
to.
Yeah. All right. So whatever works for you, works. Another option are the physical resources where, I mean, listen, let's not kid ourselves. A number of us teach in districts where our kids go home to internet-less homes. And at that point, we've got to provide resources. That's the way of doing that. I will be honest in saying that it wasn't until my kids, we have BYOD in our school now. That's a luxury that most schools don't have. I work with a population that has lots of internet access at home. It wasn't until I reached that point that I could really do this. So I'm very sympathetic to the teachers who might say, boy, this is wonderful, but I work with a population that can't go home and do that. Then again, I'm seeing that most of the kids are using smartphones to access all of this. And because I spent 4 years doing the research, I know that the smartphones are divided among socioeconomic lines. At a certain income level, the smartphone acquisition drops off significantly. But smartphones are actually, there's interesting data, ethnicity, Hispanics are more likely to have smartphones than whites, and African Americans are more likely to have smartphones than whites. That was a statistic that kind of blew me away and kind of diverted my dissertation for a few months. But with a majority of kids using smartphones to access this, then it becomes a different ballgame. And then social media is an option. I'm not sure how well that would work, but a Facebook page or Twitter or something like that to broadcast assignments. You're awfully limited in what you can post, but it certainly is an option. These are actual screenshots from Edmodo posts. So your homework for tonight is to watch the attached video, type of stock issues. I'll tell you up front it's a little challenging. Be prepared to discuss the video in class tomorrow. Yada yada. Okay, this is the first one. And then I also have discovered that if I use my phone to record something great that happens during hour 1, then I can replicate during hour 2 by uploading it to YouTube pretty quickly. And I won't show you the example, but I have an advanced debater who's part of my first hour novice class, and I don't have any advanced debater second hour, and I wanted him to model something, so I recorded it with my phone, and then while he's finishing up, I uploaded it to YouTube, and I was able to show that to my kids second hour. So just that, I mean, that's not flip blended, but that's, you know, an example of technology in the classroom.
So your kids can access YouTube at school?
The kids can access YouTube at school. Yep. And if they're using smartphones and you have cell signal in your room, which are two big impediments to that, right? So there's that. We're gonna play a game. If you would get out, if you have smartphones or tablets or laptops, you can play. You don't need Wi-Fi, but if you have something you'd like to use, get out your phone. We're gonna play Kahoot. I'm gonna move this for a second. All right. Okay. Will you go to a website, Kahoot.it? Kahoot.it. And you'll do the game pin 13531. not have a device and would like to work the computer instead, I sure could use a volunteer. Keep your battle to death, I don't care. All right. Aaron Schoberle. My kids absolutely love this. It's the first thing out of their mouth when they come to class each day. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. You should see your name pop up. One bit of advice, you may want to make sure that your screen doesn't go dim, because that might log you out. You can log out and log in at any point during the game. Start now. Don't push it yet, but everything.
No.
Okay, anyone still trying to connect? All right, are you ready? Aaron, would you hit start now? This is a 10-question topicality quiz. It's the quiz my students took yesterday. Question number 1, which of the following is not a component of a topicality shell? On your screen, you will see symbols and colors. Match them up with the answers. Seconds left. Remember, your goal is to be 82%. I hope we can.
Yeah, somebody had to be wrong.
Okay, 3 seconds left. And the answer, Aaron, is
Well, 3 of you were wrong.
uniqueness. Good. 2 of you said voters. 1 of you said interpretation. All right. So let's see our high score winners, Aaron. Zach, in first place. The speed with which you answer is a component in your scoring. All right, Aaron, our next question, please. The component of a T-shell that helps the judge choose the best definition is? Standards. Very good. 9 of you got that. All right, next. Zach again in first place with Remy and Debate Forever. Tied for second. River in fourth. Debate Girl. Is that Debate Grill?
Debater girl.
Debater Girl. I thought it might have been Grill. Okay. Zach, very good. Showing your stripes. Which of the following is not a traditional affirmative response to topicality? Fiat solves the link. Class checks abuse. We meet. Lit checks abuse. Affirmative response. Okay. All right. Well, you got it. Very good. Remember, this is the quiz that I gave to my kids the first class period. I said on Wednesday, your homework tonight is to watch these topicality videos. The bell rings on Thursday. This is what I do, and the kids are hitting 82%. All right, Aaron, back on top, Remy, and in second place. All right, go ahead.
Hey, what was the code for that?
Game pin is 13531. When the affirmative says we meet, what do they mean?
No, it's so fun. How do I go back? No, I'm trying to read my screen, not the
Our plan fits in within the definition read by the negative.
My screen was going black, so
Okay, let's see our scores. Zach is really taking us to town there. Good job. Remy sneaks up second place. RT, who is RT? Do you care to bring? Oh, Russ Tidwell. Tidler comes in the third place. All right, next. A plan with multiple elements, one of which goes beyond the resolution, is considered. All right, next result.
This is gonna be fun, you guys.
Near perfect score, group wide. All right, next. Zach. John, somebody better tackle Zach there. Kind of slow him down. I'll take your good. All right. Aaron. Our next question: a plan that solves the harms through a series of predicted steps is considered. Next up. Ten of you got that. 3 of you said topical. All right, next. Zach. Man, is he going to hold through the last 3 questions?
I gotta read through Mel's head.
All right.
Gosh, my guy's causing a lot of problems these days.
All right, go ahead. Question number 7. Why is topicality the first argument in the 1 and C, assuming the negative runs topicality? A priori. 11 of you got it. Fantastic. That was one the kids struggled with. All right. All right. It is a show now. All right, next. What is required for a negative team to automatically win the round if they win topicality?
They're too long to read the answers. Yeah, I know.
3 seconds. They persuade the judge that winning team wins the round. Good. All right. Last 2 questions. Number 9. The correct neg response to affirmative team's arguments that lit or clash checks abuse is.
Oh, yeah. I go back. You can't. I just didn't know. Shut up, all of you.
82%. All right. And our last question.
It's up on the screen.
Topicality arguments that are written Sunday through Thursday are written Sunday through Thursdays. The file read in the 1 MC is called a. Shell. Okay, let's see how we did. Zach says, Zach, is our winner hit end, please? Let's give Zach a round of applause. All right, and let's look at feedback and results. The kids like doing this part. You now on your phone may rate the quiz. How fun was it? How much did you learn? Would you recommend it? Did it leave you feeling good, bad, and different? Very complimentary group. The kids are never so complimentary.
She missed at least 3.
All right, 4 seconds for that. And then Aaron, would you click on final results?
I clicked on it.
And then would you, I'll take it from here. Let's do download results. I'm not going to worry about whether we beat the 82%, but you can download an Excel file It shows you student per student who answered what. However, lots of kids, their devices cut in and out. And now, the good news is it just gives you right or wrong answer. It doesn't tell you it took 0.8 seconds to answer. It can tell you whether Susie answered the question right or wrong. It can tell you question by question. And so that ends up being a pretty powerful tool. Okay, the rest of the
So
presentation.
Josh, do you just translate this into the grade you enter?
What's that?
Do you use the results to give a grade, or?
I would not, unless I felt confident that everyone's device worked correctly. I'll show you the, that's how, now, don't look at anybody's name. All right, so it shows you know who got it right, who got it wrong, and, you know, the overall stuff. I would not use that as a grade.
Can we watch your top? Oh my God. Apparently need to review.
I would not use that as a grade because devices tend to, you know, kids get kicked out or things like that. Not all the kids have a device, so.
If they're all
Josh, are
on-
you using that as more of a check for understanding
This is
for
my, this is
yourself?
my opening activity.
Okay.
This is slide on the screen when they come in, says get ready for a Kahoot.
So,
Bell rings,
so then you do, obviously there's an activity that's part of the homework.
right?
Is that receives a grade?
Yes.
And then do you do a traditional test, or do you just go to our activity work and then play the production for grades?
What I would do, let me make sure I understand you correctly. Bell rings, play the Kahoot. That's my check for understanding. I can go question by question and I can assess where my kids lack the knowledge and where they are strong. If necessary, spend a few minutes talking about the questions. Now that delays things, but I'm fine with that. I mean, the Kahoot, you know, 10 question Kahoot could last 20 minutes if you know, between the setup and things like that. But it ends up being a very powerful tool for me to know whether my kids are getting it. But the even better tool is, okay, now let's do this activity, and let me see you do it. All right, the rest of the presentation is all question and answer, and if you want to bail, bail, but I'm going to start with Steve.
Okay, your assessment at night, they've watched the video. What sort of assessment are you doing? Something they have to bring back to class, or are you grading it online? Do
No.
you create that yourself?
I really use about one of three strategies, and it works for the kids. One strategy is reply to this post on Edmodo with a question you still have after watching the video. And that way I can tell student by student who didn't reply. Another strategy is just a real quick Google form with like 3 questions. Your name, a question you still have, or you know, something that they have to do. And the other thing could be bring to class a piece of paper, it's your entrance ticket, something like that. That is easy for me to assess. And naturally, I don't run to the grade book and give them points for that kind of stuff, but I can tell who is and who's not engaged. Yes, question back there.
How hard is it to set up the Kahoots as a quiz?
I will tell you that it is almost no more challenging to do the Kahoot than it is to do and grade a Microsoft Word quiz. I will tell you that the Kahoot is among the easiest things I've ever done. You create the account, it's all very intuitive, put the question at the top, put your answer choices, click the correct answer, hit next question.
So it has to be some sort of smartphone or tablet?
It needs to have some sort of interface, right?
So-
Smartphone, tablet, PC.
It could be a regular.
It can be desktop, yeah. Because it has to be able to have a web browser that can go to kahoot.it. And that's a whole lot of devices.
So if they're all on classroom laptops,
They're all on classroom laptops, that's perfect. And I've got about 10-15% of my kids who don't have a smartphone. I recognize that's substantially higher than a whole lot of schools. But, you know, we partner and we work together, and I kind of present it as an optional activity. But I will tell you that my kids, I've had kids writhing on the floor because they missed the question and because they tapped the wrong question. My classroom has never been more loud or more exuberant than when we're doing one of these Kahoot quizzes. I mean, they just go nuts for it. Yes?
Is there a fee for Kahoot?
No, free. Aaron?
Does this generally work with more motivated students? What if you have a couple kids that, some of us have that enrolled for they had nowhere else to go?
Yeah.
Like, how does the flip affect those kids who aren't used to this kind of style? Do you generally see better work out of those kind of kids, or they just kind of, they choose not to do it, that's their own deal, or?
The engagement piece, it is what it is with the kids, you know.
Okay.
There is some point, and this is where I still need to have some growth as a teacher, but if I have kids screaming and hooting and hollering and writhing on the floor because they missed a question, like, I feel like I've done as much as I know how to do with the engagement piece, and they don't feel engaged just by having a smartphone. I could give them a traditional quiz where it's with points, but that becomes a punishment activity, not a reward-based activity. I mean, this was an activity to honor the people who answered the question right, not to punish the kids who didn't know the information. And really, you know, my whole message to the kids, and I bet it's true for your classroom, is true, is the ultimate test is the tournament. And you know, and that's where you get rewarded for your knowledge or punished for your lack. Aaron, did you have a question?
Yeah, you said that you don't use this for grades, and I'm not guided by, you know, a grade or needing to put something in a book either. But is there a time that you do hand something and check for understanding in that way?
Yes, and I have.
And what?
I have more grades in my grade book than I've ever had. And my philosophy for 17 years prior to this year was, your tournament's the grade, I don't have time to grade, I'm going to teach about topicality, it takes everything I have just to lecture about topicality, maybe fit an activity, maybe if you're lucky do an activity the next day. I don't have time for grades, your first grade is going to be your tournament grade. There's a whole lot of good justification for that, but I think the bad justification, I think that the reasons that doesn't work outweighs, and I kind of see that. I now rely on a much more traditional classroom with your homework for tonight, and you're getting points. And I have used quizzes, and I have used, you know, some testing material, and I've never done that before. My classroom has always been, the first grade in the grade book occurs maybe late September.
So when you send them home with watching a video, there'll be a quiz, or there'll be something that goes along with that.
There'll be
and then this is the fun thing that you do to start the.
This is what we do during class, yeah. Other questions?
Josh, have you, like, obviously your take on this is with novice debate.
Yes.
And you're creating the content mostly for uniformity, right?
Yes.
There are things about advanced debate that I'm perfectly willing to admit out loud, I just don't understand.
You and me both.
Have you considered, maybe this is just a discussion piece, have you considered saying to advanced kids, we're going to talk about this thing tomorrow, your homework is, you go find whatever resources you can find, create a summary, do something.
Yeah, I have not.
Come back, you have a thought or an opinion about that.
At this point, and his question is basically, how do I,
In
have
other
I thought about
words,
flipping
instead of
advanced
creating
debate?
content in some situations,
Yeah.
do we live in a world where you can say to kids, the content is out there?
What I've started doing, and this is where my head is at, I've started videotaping as many practice rounds as I can videotape and putting them on YouTube. In doing that, it is possible, although I'm not ready to do it yet, but it's possible to isolate maybe a 3-minute constructive, you know, part of